Alright, let's try this again and again. Greetings and welcome. My name is Aaron Craig with Beyond Us Games, and I am going to be doing a live stream of building a website from scratch. It's going to be several parts, I imagine, because it's going to take a little while, and I want your input. Now, normally I am a games developer and teacher, but I've gotten into a lot of web development lately because that's what my degree was actually in, that's where my experience lies educationally, and I want to start sharing that with everyone. And the way I want to do that is through live streaming. I want to show how I work, how I learn, because I still don't know that much, and I want to have it be built with you guys. So I'm going to be doing live streams of both web development and game development on a weekly basis, and I'm going to work all that out as we go along with input from all of you. So first up is my website. So this is my Beyond Us Games website that I just built myself. This is all hand-coded, which I really enjoy doing. So it's not live right now because I am getting that all set up, and apparently domain transfers take like 7 to 15 days. Hopefully it'll be up soon, but this is the local version, so I'm just going to walk you through it because I really like it. This is the landing page, and right now it's showing off my courses because that's what I've got. When I have more stuff to show off, it'll appear in here. So you can follow all of this. Everything is up and running. The big thing I want to show you, though, is going to be this schedule right here. So you're going to be able to come in here and check out my live stream schedule, and I'm going to try and have this planned out a month in advance. And once I get Patreon set up, I kind of not set up, but reworked, I'm going to have people that are supporting me be able to vote on time slots for when I live stream. That way, if it works better for you to pop in on a Saturday, then you can cast your vote on then. If a Wednesday works better, then we can do that. But I want this to be a very communal-driven experience. So I've got my schedule on here, and then you can check out my live stream, my YouTube. You can look at games I'm working on, board games. This is the current one that I've got going, and then I've got an about page if you want to learn anything more about that, the usual. So this is my website. It'll be up and running soon, and what I really wanted you to know is just the schedule. I'm going to work on getting this schedule up and running as quickly as I can and keep it up to date so that you'll know when I'm streaming and when you can drop by. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into what we're doing in this live stream. So I am going to be building a website for beginners, basically. So if you have no real coding experience with websites, then this is a great place to start. So we are going to be doing using Visual Studio Code, which is a free open source piece of software from Microsoft, and we're going to be using HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap, which is a framework that allows you to build websites that look good both on desktop and mobile without having to do any behind-the-scenes coding yourself, which is really great because it makes it way, way simpler. So I am going to be building this, and then I'm going to be doing a course both on Udemy and on Skillshare. And this one specifically will be free. But if you're watching now, maybe you don't have to go and watch that course, or you can actually influence how it's going to turn out. Because I am not a great designer. I have to do some design because I'm actually a web developer, which is front and back end for what I do. And so I have to choose how some things look, but I'm not great at it. So a lot of what I do is actually go and look at other websites, see what they're doing, what I like, and then kind of emulate that. So if you have any design ideas or you'd like to see me do something a specific way, let me know. I am in the comments, I am out there, and I am ready to take ideas and try things. But with all that being said, I think let's go ahead and get started. I've got Visual Studio Code, so if you don't have that, go ahead and download it. It's really quick, it's lightweight, and I'm not too familiar with it, so if you're learning, I'm also learning, so keep that in mind. I have a couple extensions already installed, and that's kind of what Visual Studio Code is it's kind of its claim to fame. There are other ones like it, and they're actually just as good. But from what I understand, Visual Studio Code is kind of where it's going to be in the future, because Microsoft purchased the other large competitor, and even though they say they're keeping it separate, they're probably eventually going to merge in the future. So Visual Studio Code is kind of where it's at. So I have auto rename tag, HTML tag wrapper, IntelliSense, and live server. These are things that just kind of make it easier to be able to work with. There are some built-in things like Emmet into Visual Studio Code, and that's really great, but these ones, for me, help a lot. Live server especially, we're going to be able to view our website live as we're coding and see all the changes that we make, which is very helpful, especially when you're trying to get that design looking just right. So let's go ahead and make a new file, and we can actually save this file as any type, because Visual Studio Code can be used for way more than just web development. But if I come here and save, I'm going to go ahead and save this as index.html, and then it's going to know right away that it is an HTML file. Now we're going to need to do a little bit of installing of third parties. So we're actually going to want to be using Bootstrap, which is a free and built library that a lot of websites use. So if I go to Bootstrap, type Bootstrap 4, and we can come in here and we can actually get, let's go to the most stable release, Bootstrap version 4.1. So this is basically a library of things that you can type, and you can set classes, and okay. Trying to explain it in a way that makes sense, because the first time I heard about Bootstrap, I had literally no idea what it was. I thought it was like a different language entirely, and I was very, very confused. So you can think of Bootstrap as a plugin that allows you to take your code and set certain styles without having to worry about everything that goes behind it. So if you want something on your website to be 50% width all the time, there's actually just a class that you can type inside of here that says W-50, and then it will automatically keep it at 50% all the time. And what's great about it is that you can use these Bootstrap classes, and then if your website changes or Bootstrap updates, everything will update automatically, because it's all using the same Bootstrap, the same code behind it, and it works really great. But the best way to see it, to understand it, is just to kind of see it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on download here, and we are going to be using, let's see, we're going to want the source files, which is right here. So we're going to use the Bootstrap, we're going to use Bootstrap Cdn. So we're actually just going to link to Bootstrap. That way it's always up to date, and we don't have to download anything right now. Makes it really easy. You just have to know kind of where to put it, and right now we have a completely blank file, so we need to actually put in some things here. So the first thing that you have to put in is actually going to be, let's see, I am used to using pre-generated code, so why don't we go ahead and I'll pull up something that we can actually kind of go over this together. Alright, so when you're using, when you're building a website, there are certain things you need to have in there. And the first one is that you need to have it, tell it which kind of document it is, which is going to be an HTML document. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole example and then paste it inside of here. Now, this is really bad formatting, so I'm going to select this and press Tab, and then do that, and let's see, bring that back. Okay, that's a little better. Now, you've got the doc type in here, and then you need to have all of your HTML, everything that is basically the website itself, needs to be right here. It's going to be inside of these two HTML tags. I'm actually going to bring that one back. And then you have certain things inside of head, and then basically your entire website is going to be built inside of body. So if you want, well, anything you're going to put in there is going to be like this. So if I actually save this right now, I can click on my Go Live button, which is a fantastic feature. And this is a website. We could technically go and buy a domain, put this online, and people could navigate to it. I don't think anybody would stick around for very long, but this is technically a website, and it is up and running. Now, there's more stuff you can add, and we're going to make it more complex as we go along. But the first thing we're going to do is get Bootstrap installed so that we have that. Now, to do that, we need to, let's see, where was that at? Right here. So it tells you exactly kind of how to do it and where to put this. So this is a link for a style sheet, and we'll get into what CSS is, style sheets, everything like that eventually. But we just want to get Bootstrap inside of here so that we can start using it. So we have 3 scripts all together, and we have a link to a style sheet. So let's make sure we know where this is supposed to go. So a link, so the style sheet we're going to copy, and we're going to come in, and the style sheet should go inside of the head. Inside head is where a lot of, pretty much any of your links for other style sheets, stuff like that, is where that goes. After body is where the scripts go. Now this specific script may need to be in head, but we'll see. I'll go ahead and copy it. We'll put it after body, and we'll copy these 2 scripts as well and throw them right there. I'll go ahead and save it and go, okay. Go ahead and stop that. We'll go live one more time. Now, once you have Bootstrap installed, there's a lot that you can do. And you can see that the heading and the text is already changed. So I think we've got Bootstrap up and running appropriately. And we can test that really quick by, let's go ahead and, this is just to make sure we've got Bootstrap in there. And I can see, yeah, this is all of the Bootstrap classes that you can add to it. And there's a lot of them, which is great. So it looks like this is working. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here. And I'm going to explain what I'm doing and how I'm doing it in just a second once I know Bootstrap is installed. So I'm going to go ahead and add a class called Text Center, save it, come back, and let's take a look. Yeah, okay. So, not exactly what I want from that. But we've got Bootstrap installed and we've got it all set up. So, let's talk about what we need to do next. So, HTML and CSS are going to be the foundation of what we're building here. So, HTML is all of this code that you can see right here. This is all HTML. Granted, the scripts and stuff and the links, don't worry about that. But let me go ahead and also see if I can increase the font size on this because it's kind of small. Let me do a quick check and look up increase font size in Visual Studio Code, because I know that's one of the major complaints when you're actually like live streaming code is that it's always too small. So I want to not have that be a problem. So we're going to go ahead and see if I can change that really quick. Font size. Okay, let's change that to 18. Might as well do it a little bit bigger. That way, not worried about it. Okay. That's maybe a little too much. Okay, so now we've got a font size in here that's a lot larger. Okay, so let's do a breakdown of what you need to use when you're actually building a website. The only thing you absolutely have to have is HTML, because that's what we've got right now is HTML. HTML is hypertext markup language, and it's basically your telling the browser that is eventually going to see it how things should be interpreted. as either a heading, which is what this is. H1 stands for heading 1. And you can actually hold over this and you can see that it tells you exactly what it is, which is really great. It's really helpful when you're learning. You can just type these things out and then read what they actually are. So HTML is composed of tags, and everything inside of those tags are kind of what the tag says. So H1 is a type of heading, and your browser is going to interpret the text inside of here, and it's going to know that it needs to display it as a heading. And what that means is that it's going to look a certain way. So this is a heading, and this is a paragraph. That's the actual text that we have inside of here. So this is just normal text, normal language that we use. This is the tags that are HTML. And normally you wouldn't code a website without CSS as well, cascade style sheets, and we're certainly going to use them, but I just want to talk about the HTML first. There are a lot of different tags that you can have for HTML. Things like divs and spans, and, well, if you do this, you can see these are all types of HTML that you can use. There's quite a few, but you don't need to memorize all of them, because normally when you want to do something, you're going to look it up, or you'll have done it before and you'll remember. The important things that you're going to want to know is that most of the time when you're building a website, you're going to want to think of things in either like grids or boxes. And that's what Bootstrap is going to allow us to do, is actually set things up so that they are encapsulated in like columns is how they do it. And then those columns are actually going to be able to automatically change depending on the browser type. So if you're looking at it on a desktop, it's going to be one way. If you're looking on a phone, it's going to automatically change, which is what Bootstrap is great for. It allows us to do that. So HTML is going to be what we actually say things should look like. And then the CSS that we're going to use is going to be kind of the style of it. So if we put in a, let's say, a div inside of here, and a div, let's see what this says. So it has no special meaning at all, which is important. You actually use divs to kind of encapsulate other things, and you put images, videos, text inside of divs, and then you do things with that whole box. And if we actually take as div, we can kind of show you what I'm talking about. So if we have a div, we have a div that means really nothing. So if I save this, you can see that nothing has changed inside of here. But if we come in and we add a class, and we're going to get to what classes are exactly, but I can add a class that says like background dark. And H1 and P inside of here are actually inside of this div. And so now everything in that div has a background that is dark. And that class is specifically from Bootstrap. So you can see here that this is the entire div, the entire section, the divider that we have inside of there. Now we could also take that out, and we can add classes to every single element that we want. So a class is for CSS. You give a class, you give a tag a class name or an ID name, and then you can style it a certain way. So if we wanted to make the heading have a background of dark specifically, we could do that. Now just the heading has a background. And if we wanted to change, let's see, text. See, part of the reason I don't like Visual Studio Code is that the autocomplete isn't there. There's still more Bootstrap classes inside of here, but they aren't appearing. So let me see if that's not it. Let me look up something really quick. Text caps. That's not at all what I want. Okay, here's a cheat sheet for Bootstrap, which can be pretty nice. I just want to see text text uppercase. That's what I'm looking for. So we can apply a class called text uppercase to this is a paragraph right here. And then you can see that this text is all uppercase. And that's all done with CSS, and we're applying classes inside of HTML. And so basically you can give any element a class or an ID. A class is used with multiple elements. So you can think of a class as many different elements that are using it, and then you can add an ID for something that only is going to use that one. So you would never put the same name title, another ID somewhere else. So if you have an ID called title, you would never then put that ID, the same title, somewhere else. You could add another one, and that allows you to hone in on one specific element very easily and quickly. So HTML is composed of tags. You have beginning tags, and then you have closing tags, like you can see right there. And what's really nice is you can see that they are linked. So you can see where they start and where they stop. So you've got tags, and you can read what they do inside of here, which I encourage you to do. And then you have classes that you can put on side of those tags. And you also have IDs. And a lot of that's really what you do, is you set up what you want. You have text, you have images. So if we wanted to have an image inside of here, you can think you would need a tag. You open up a tag with a left tag? Alligator? Ooh, I'm forgetting my terminology. But you open it up with a left brace, and then you would type IMG. So it's not actually spelled image, it's actually spelled just IMG. And inside of here, each of these tags have special qualities. Most of them you just need to put a class or an ID on, but there are some that have very specific things that you have to put in there. And for image, it's actually going to be source. So if we wanted to put an image inside of here, we could. Let's go ahead and go to Google Images. Okay, let's just look up an image. Look up an image of technology. Now, of course, you don't want to just pull images from the web if you're actually like publishing your website, but for what we're doing, this is fine. Just remember, copyright is a thing. But I'm going to right-click on this image, and what I can actually do is I can get let's go to View Image, and this is the actual address for the image right here. I can copy this address, I can put this inside of the source, and now my image has a source. So if I save this and open this back up, this is my web page, and this is my image. And you can see that it's pulling directly from where we got it inside of here. And it's a very large image, so it takes up pretty much the whole page, unless we zoom out. But that's how you can input an image. And then you can think that it's actually going to be pretty much the same thing for video, except it's actually all the way spelled out for some reason. So you can have video, you can put a source inside of there. Another one that is going to be unique is going to be the anchor tag. So anchor is just A, and what this is used for is for linking to another website. So if you want to link either somewhere else on your website or somewhere else on the internet, an anchor is what you're going to need. Now, it looks just like a regular paragraph text. If I type Google right there, and then I load this up, this looks like just a regular kind of paragraph, and nothing special about it right now. But an anchor tag has a special attribute that you can put on it called Href. And trust me, I hate that as much as you do, because it doesn't, like, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, a lot of these could have been named a lot better. Href, if you're not familiar with HTML and developing websites, it's very easy to forget that, and that's just the way it is. But Href is basically saying the reference of where it's going to point to. So if we actually put in the full address for google.com, then when we click on this link, you can see that it takes us directly there. And you can also see that it changed its styling, and that's because your web browser, and just by default, knows that a link should look different, and when you click on it, your mouse changes and it underlines it. So you can click on it, go to a new web page, and you can also add more things to anchors, but we're not going to worry about that right now. But do know that it is good practice to make links obvious and also don't make them nefarious, because you could very easily have a link that says Google and but it actually takes you to Facebook, and that would not be a good idea. You don't want to have a link that shows that it's going somewhere and then takes you someplace different. People are not going to appreciate that, and that's how you can trick people in a lot of different ways. So don't do that. Okay, we've got anchors, images, divs, H1, P1, all of that. That's a lot of the essentials right there, is that HTML is made up of tags, and when you want to do something, most of the time you're going to want to put it inside of a div, because that allows you to style the entire element. And when you're using Bootstrap, it's also essential for how they've got it set up using Flexbox. And that's kind of the basics of HTML. So now let's go back and let's take a look at our CSS. So let's go ahead and get rid of all of the Bootstrap in there. I wanted to show you that so that you understand what it's doing and kind of how that works. So, oh, I see a question. Landon, for this is actually going to be this specific website's not going to have a backend. It's actually just going to be a front end. But personally, I use C#. I use Visual Studio, and on the back end, I use C# with ASP to handle that logic, and then a lot of it's also with jQuery, stuff like that. Does that answer your question? Alright, so we're going to go ahead and make a CSS file here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new file, and I'm going to say site.css. So a CSS is Cascading Style Sheet. So this allows us to actually do our own custom styles for anything in our website, which is awesome. And the way that this looks is, well, let me show you. You have specific elements like H1, P, and div, and those are actual recognized tags that HTML knows. So if we wanted to affect one of those tags, we would come in and we would just have to say H1, and then do a curly brace open, and you got it closed down here. And then you have a lot of different attributes that you can affect. Things like font size, you put a colon in there, and then if I put 100 pixels followed by a semicolon, make sure that's in there, otherwise you're going to have a problem. Save it, and we are not linking to this. So CSS must be linked. So right now I'm making a change to H1, but I have not set up an actual link to this. So I have a style sheet, and I'm going to be able to change anything about my website that I want, but I need to actually say inside of my website, hey, this style sheet is important, make sure you use it. So inside of our head, we're going to do another link just like this. So we're going to do link. The relative type is style sheet. There are other kinds of links that you can have in there. And our reference is actually going to be right here to site.css. And know that my folder structure, which is important, is actually just this right here. There's an HTML and a CSS. So there's no folder structure, there's no hierarchy. But if there was, I would need to actually add in like some dots and like to go up or go down a couple of levels. So we'll do that as we get further along, and as we add assets and images, we're going to want to organize everything the best that we can. Okay, so I have a link to that, and I think that's everything we need. So I'll save it, load that up, and then you can see that our change is now in effect. We have changed the font size of our H1. And we're not using this class right now at all. It's still in effect, even if we take out that class, because our CSS is specifically targeting all H1s, which is kind of great, but it's also kind of dangerous unless you know that you're going to want everything about your website, like everything on your H1. If you want all of them to be 100 pixels, that's great. If not, you're not going to want to change the default of that. So we can actually come in here, we'll delete this, and I'll show you how to make a class. So let's go ahead and give this H1 a specific class name. So let's give this one a class name of title. So this is the title for our page. And inside of here, I'm going to put a period and put the class name. And the class name is title. And I'm going to go ahead and put the font size to 100 pixels. And I'll go ahead and change the color of it to red. I'll save it. And then you can see that that has now taken place. But it's only taking place on that title class. So if we come back in here and add another H1, I'm also a heading. So this is still a regular H1 heading. This one just happens to have a special class associated with it. And that's actually how Bootstrap works, which is kind of why I went in that specific order, to show you classes and then to show you that you can actually code and set up all of the unique styles that you want for yourself, which is really cool. So we have a class, and the other thing that we're going to want to do is add an ID to show you what that is, because it's a little different. We'll go an ID called heading2, and inside of our CSS, now you need to put a pound or a hashtag symbol. So the period is for classes, the pound symbol is for IDs. So heading2, and we do the same thing inside of here, except now let's add in some other attributes to show you kind of what you can do. Let's add in a background color, and let's do blue. Let's add, let's add a border of 5 pix solid black. And don't worry if you're not totally sure which ones I'm calling in here. I'm not just doing like voodoo magic or something. All of these you can find out if you just type a letter. You can see kind of what they do, and then you can hover over it to see what they are, just like with the tags. And I'm actually going to show you some resources here in just a few minutes that I use pretty much every time I actually start developing my websites, because I don't have all of this memorized by the least bit. There are so many attributes and different things that you can do that memorizing all of them would be a waste of time, in my opinion, because you can just go and look them up. And I have some of them that I use memorized because I change background colors and borders and font size fairly often, but a lot of the times you don't need to have that memorized. You just need to know, oh hey, I want to change the size of something, or I want to change the width of something. How would I do that? And then I'll show you some great resources for that. Wow, that is really bright. Let me change this really quick to the transparency down. Okay. Whew. Now this ID heading2 has a background color, and it has a border that is 5 pixels wide, and it is black. So that's all CSS that I have changed and set inside of here, and I have done it using a class called title and an ID called heading2. So the thing about classes is that you can use them anywhere. So if you wanted to come in here and I wanted to make this paragraph title as well, if I save that, now it looks like the exact same thing. So classes are things that you want to kind of break down into logical chunks. When you start getting along building larger websites, the thing that I'd recommend doing is setting up your classes so that you can apply multiples of them to get exactly what you want. So what you might want to do in something like this is you might call title, you actually set this up to be font size of 100. So all titles would have a font size, they'd be huge, they'd be large. But then you'd want to come in here and say like red. And then you could say color is red. And if you want to change the color, by the way, you can come in here and just hover over this, which is great. And then you can choose whatever you want. So you can choose any kind of color with transparency in there as well. But now we have broken this down into two classes, which there's more code here, but it allows more flexibility. Because if I want my heading to be red as well, but I want my paragraph to just be large and not colored, you can do that by breaking it up. So now my heading is large and red, and this one is just large. So it's kind of like a separation of logic. And you want to be careful not to take this too deep, because there are some things that you just want to style a certain way, and it's okay to put all of that styling inside of one class or one ID. No problem. But if you have like a theme that you're going for, and you don't want to have to make every single P have a specific ID that you change, you know, break down what you're doing. If certain things have borders, then set up a class that has a specific kind of border. And then you can apply that to different elements, and you can change the background and the size and all of that stuff with different classes. And that's kind of a pro tip, which when you're starting out, I guess you don't really need. So I'm going to show you some resources, because we're actually coming fairly close to the end. I'm going to be streaming for about another 27 minutes. I'm going to end at 2:30. If you have any suggestions or anything, any more questions, feel free to shout them out. But there are several resources that I use. One of them, one of the best ones, is called W3 Schools. Now, this is a fantastic website for learning so many different things. They got their start in learning HTML and CSS. And you can see here that they have, well, we actually copied the HTML specifically from here. So this is what we've been working with right here. And this is some of the CSS that we've been working with that we've made our own. And so you can come in here and you can search for anything. So if you just search for CSS font, you're going to be able to come in here and change the fonts. You can click on font property, and once you actually get into a specific language, you can see they've got HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and plenty more. You can actually come in here and look at every single property of CSS inside of here. So there's a lot, but you can click on it and you can see exactly what it does with an example. You can come in and you can try it yourself. So like here's the code that you can actually come in and change, and then you can run it and it will change the code, and it's fantastic. And they have everything that you're going to need to learn basically how to make websites, both front end and back end, which is awesome. So HTML reference on here as well. They have everything you can need, tables, lists, all of the attributes that you can use are right here, and you can go through them, and if you want you can actually just like go all the way through them so to know what they are, because there are a lot of them. And I'll be honest, I don't even know what a lot of these are. Like mark, nope, I've never used that. Dialogue, no, never used that one either. I know what I use, and in a way that can be bad, because you don't want to just like be stuck in your own way. You don't want to always just use what you've only used. And so it can be great to come in here and look at a new one and see, oh yeah, can I use this somehow? And try and use it. But at the same time, you don't need all of these things for every project that you're going to do. If you're building a simple website, which is what we're doing in this series of live streams, we're not going to need 95% of the tags in there. We're going to use anchors, we're going to use divs, images, maybe videos. We're going to use headings and paragraphs, and that's probably about it. Like, there's not a whole lot you need to do to actually have a pretty nice looking website, and we just want to build a front-facing website that shows how to do these things, and this is a great place to do it. So, W3 Schools. Keep them in mind. if you look up anything about HTML or CSS, they're probably going to be one of the first results anyway. So know that, and you can trust them. Another thing is Stack Overflow. Now, Stack Overflow, if you are a coder of any kind and you've ever been stuck, you've probably been saved by them. Stack Overflow is all about questions and answers for topics on every single language imaginable, programming language. So if you have any kind of code question, look it up on Google in like the form of a question, and I imagine it will come up in Stack Overflow. So like if I say, how do I make a div full screen? First thing right here, Stack Overflow. Then you've got Free Code Camp and then W3 Schools. So Stack Overflow is fantastic. They have questions, and you can see right away like if this question is good, and then how good the answer is as well by how many upvotes it has. So Stack Overflow is fantastic. And yeah, Mark, absolutely. W3 Schools is that's actually kind of where I started too, until I went to college and then got taught and got even more confused for the most part. So Stack Overflow is probably you're going to find all the time. If you search any kind of query online, Stack Overflow is going to come up with an answer. And for the most part, they're going to be what you need. If it's not exactly it, then you can, keep looking. Once you get more into web development and you start using things like JavaScript and jQuery, and you want to use more advanced elements. Let's see. Here we go. A website called Can I Use is really, really great when you want to try something and you have this idea and you're like, oh yeah, I think it would be great if I did something like this, but you also need to start thinking about compatibility, which when you start thinking about all the different browsers that your website can be viewed on, it's kind of overwhelming, and that's where this comes in. So if you're building a website and you're trying to use something, let's say you want to use picture-in-picture, you can check out to see what browsers support it, and then you can make your decision based on that. So here, picture-in-picture tells you what it is, and then it tells you what supports it and which version. So if you want to use picture-in-picture specifically, it looks like Chrome is supported, 70 through 73 are supported, and not much else. Safari, so it can be enabled in Safari, Opera, and iOS Safari, but can be enabled features I wouldn't recommend relying on, so you want to make sure you have a backup there. But something like this, the global usage is 25% for Chrome, so if you really, really want a feature and you don't care about users of Firefox, Edge, or Internet Explorer, then go ahead and use it, That's on you. And if you do care, then you can look for something else and you can see what supports it. So like, here's CSS Overflow. If you want to use that property, you are pretty much all good to go. It looks like these are partial support, but everything supports it there. So can I use, and you can type in exactly what you're looking for here. I don't have anything coming to mind, otherwise I would. This is a great tool as well to make sure that your websites are actually usable all the way around on all the different browsers. And of course, probably one of the best ways is just to take your website and then actually put it on a different browser. So right now I'm using Firefox, but if I was getting ready to use this, I would open it up in Chrome, Internet Explorer, and then I would put it into mobile sizes of each of those and, make sure it all looks good. And the last thing is a resource inside of your web browser already, and that is the developer tools. So if you click on whatever menu it is, whatever browser you're using, there's going to be a developer or web developer tools of some kind. And if you open up those tools, it seems to be Control-Shift-I is the shortcut key in general. This is absolutely life-saving, okay? when you start building a website of any size, you are going to want to use the developer tools all the time. I basically have my developer tools open side by side when I'm developing my website just all the time, because it shows you all the information that you might not realize. So you can click on this little icon, and the icon looks pretty much the same on Chrome and on Firefox, and you can hover over different elements, and then you can see information about them. You can see that you've got the kind of tag it is, and then you have the ID right there, heading 2, and you can see that this one has a class. It gives you the width and the height, and then also you can come down here and look at the layout of that specific item. So you can see here that this is the width and height of the content. This is padding, which we haven't talked about yet. We haven't talked about really border or margin either, although this one does have a border. So if we come and we click on this one, you can see that this has a border, and it should be showing that, but for some reason it's not. That's okay. But this allows you to see that, and you can also then actually change things in here. So if I click on my H1 right here, I can see that these are the properties, and you can see where all of the properties come from, which is also really helpful when you want to change something and see like where it actually comes from. So I can see that my class red, I can click on my site CSS5 and see that this is my CSS file, and on line 5, which is not line 5, line 3, I'm actually changing the color to red. And so I can actually see that, and I can actually come in here and change that. I can make it work or not if I wanted to, which is really cool. I'm on the wrong element though, I think. Oh, okay. Here's the title, so I can change the font size in here. And you can also come in here and just add an element. So if I wanted to test out to see what would it look like if I aligned my text using center, then that's what it would look like. And this is a way that you can play around with adding different elements inside of here without actually changing your code. If you load your website again, all of that will go back and be changed because they're temporary, but this does work, and I highly encourage you to use this all the time. On Google Chrome, it's the same kind of thing. On Firefox, they have it. They have it on Edge as well, although I think I just heard that Microsoft is throwing in the towel with Edge and is actually going to be developing a new web browser based on Google Chrome. So that might not even be important. But in IE, Internet Explorer, that doesn't work well at all, so I wouldn't recommend trying the developer tools there. But these are 4 tools that are absolutely essential when you start developing websites. You got the web developer tools itself in the browser, W3 Schools, Stack Overflow, and Can I Use. Can I Use is a little more niche, and definitely when you actually are like ready to publish, this is when you would start looking at that and making sure it works well across all the different platforms. But it's still very useful, and I come back to it pretty often. So, okay, we have a few minutes left, so if anyone has anything like a specific question about HTML, CSS, or I guess what I'm doing here in the first place, feel free to shout that out. If not, then I guess I'll just do a little more here, and I'm going to eventually, this is going to, if you didn't know, I'm actually going to be turning this website that we're building into a course. So it's going to be a free course on Udemy and on Skillshare. I've got several on there already, and this is going to be aimed at direct beginners. And what I'm doing right here is actually building the project. So all the courses that I like to do are project-based, so that when you're done with it, you have something to show and that you've built. So I am building a basic website right here, and I guess I have to decide on what I want that to look like. I am a awful artist and not a great designer. I still love doing web design. It's just that I'm not good at being creative. So a lot of what I do is actually go and look at other websites, figure out what they're doing, and emulate them. So that's something that I I'm pretty good at emulating websites, but coming with my own is much harder. So if you've got input once we start going, I would love to hear that. And Landon, I kind of do, but kind of not. I teach more full-time than anything else. I am instructor here on YouTube, Udemy, and on Skillshare. And right now I am focusing on teaching because I need the money, really. I'm kind of in a place where games are what I really want to be building, but they are a really long investment, and it's not something that I think can bring in the money like as quickly as I need. And I don't want to sound greedy because I'm not doing this just for the money. I actually love teaching and I love doing this kind of stuff. So right now I am not a full-time games developer. I'm a full-time teacher of web development and games. So as I teach games though, I use that on my own stuff too. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of browsing. So I just want to look at some websites and kind of see what people have done, because that's kind of how I get my inspiration. So if I look around here and kind of see what other websites have done, because a lot of stuff on the web, if you visit a lot of websites, you'll actually find that a lot of them are copying off each other. Like this idea here of having sections that explain your company as you scroll down, that's a very common theme. And there's no like copyright on it, so you know it's not like it's illegal or anything. But I recently spent several hours looking through calendars to be able to integrate and embed them into my website, and almost every single calendar website was exactly the same. Except for their content, obviously, but they had a video at the top, and then you would scroll down and some of it would be animated, and then they would have like different sections of, oh, this calendar is great and you can do this and that, and they basically looked like they were copied and pasted just with different content. So I think it's a fine thing to get ideas, and then as you're doing it, kind of take it and make it your own. So this stuff is a little... That's not exactly what I'm looking for. So these are some of the, apparently the best designed websites out there, but I want something... Here we go. Minimalistic Web Design. Minimalistic is a style, and for me, I really like minimalism. The idea that less is more, I think, is very powerful. So like if we take a look at some of these websites, you can see that these, let's see, I haven't seen these ones before. Yeah, so this is really cool. It's just one page, and yeah, I love this kind of animation as you scroll around. That's really, really cool. Yeah, so this is basically just one web page. Very little in terms of like stuff flashing at you. Very slow scrolling though. I'm not a huge fan of that. Let's take a look at another one. Yeah, so some of these use really, really fancy animations, and it's really cool. Yeah, so this has like a timeline. Interactive. Yeah, that's cool. You can scroll through and it'll change. Okay. Yeah, this is really cool. Not that helpful. Okay. Here we go. Full page. Oh. That looks like that company got shut down. No, that company got shut down too. Alright, let's take a look at this architect one then. I'm a big fan of full image, taking everything up. It's very eye-catching to me. So, and Mark, you are totally right. He says that minimalism can hurt usability, and it can if it's done incorrectly. Like if you try to get rid of so much that it's hard to actually like navigate around and find where you're going, then I would definitely say you've done something wrong. And every single style is going to have drawbacks and benefits, and I think it's up to the designer to both see what they want, what their client wants, and then make the best of it, because it's always going to have drawbacks and benefits one way or the other. You just have to see if you can minimize the drawbacks the most you can. And everyone is going to have personal preference. That's just how it is. This one's really nice. Kind of flashy, a lot of animation. I like this mouse animation though, with the background. That's really cool. Okay. I'm looking for something that can be created basically with just HTML and CSS, not a lot. I don't want to use any JavaScript right now. This first website we're building is going to be, aimed at beginners and basic, and then after that one I'm going to make another course, which I'll do a lot through live streaming, and that one's going to be much more advanced, using what I'm more familiar with, using Visual Studio, ASP.NET, and then we'll get into JavaScript, jQuery, full animations, basically everything, and that will cover publishing websites and stuff too. So this one for now I want to keep as simple as possible, and these ones are really nice. Now, okay, this looks like okay, you can't scroll. I was gonna say this looked like an idea of minimalism kind of hurting it, because you start there but you have no idea what it is, and it wasn't obvious that I should scroll down, because I'm not quite sure, like, I don't know what this is. Yeah, I don't know what this is at all, but I'm kind of confused by their website, so alright. Okay, here's... Oh, that's nice. This is actually something that you can do with just CSS too. You can CSS 3, I believe it is now, is really, really awesome, and it's very powerful. You can actually add in animations and transitions and like effects between, when you hover you can change the transition and the duration of stuff. So this could actually all be done with CSS. The images probably wouldn't be able to be dynamic, but I don't know if these are either. So this is really cool. I like that. Very expensive housing, it looks like. That's a nice effect. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Alright. So, I want to do something that kind of challenges me as well as a web developer, and not just stick to the same approach that I have. So as I build this out, hopefully you guys will give me some input about how it should look, or what element should go where. That way I'm not just doing exactly what I want to do, and that way it's kind of a cooperation and a creation from all of us. But I think that's all I'm going to do for now for today. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm super stoked that anyone actually showed up, because I didn't really advertise this or anything. This is going to be a common thing. When my website launches, they'll have a schedule on there that you'll be able to check out, and I'll put up live streams on here as well so you can know when they're coming. I'm going to be doing another one in about half an hour. That's going to be game development. I'm going to be using Game Maker Studio 2, and I'm going to be developing a top-down shooter, and that will also eventually turn into a course that you'll be able to check out. So if you've enjoyed this, if you can stand my voice and you like what I'm doing and teaching here, then I encourage you to check out my channel, check out my Patreon, see if you want to get involved. My Patreon is going to be growing and changing, and hopefully I'll see some of you there. And yeah, so thanks for joining me, and as always, have fun making great stuff. I'll talk to you later.